I don't know why my body is making that noise. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
I can't not do it anymore. It's like become tradition. I have to do this stupid. And I fully admit, listening to it again, that the voice noise that I make is kind of annoying. Yeah. But it's here to stay now. So sorry about it.
That's cool.
I don't really care. I'm going to drop down a little bit. I'm kind of hyper today. I'm not going to lie.
Cool.
I'm in a good mood.
I prefer that.
Yeah. So today, just to get right into it, I am drinking the frozen bombsicle C4. And, okay. Sorry for the thump.
Bong.
But you're going to have to do some addition by subtraction. So we're going to talk a little bit today about the guy that is claiming that he is he's basically claiming that he's the false prophet at this point. He's saying he's the true pope and all that other stuff. And so I chose the frozen bombsicle C4 because of the religious affiliation of said person. Do you get the ad? No? All right. Well,
go ahead and explain it for those that or don't. I don't care. Okay.
No, I'd like to not have the podcast get banned.
Okay.
Did you see that in Europe, they are like, I think we talked about it a little bit last week, but it's kind of escalated a little bit that there's a bit of discrimination going on. Wouldn't you believe it?
Oh,
odd, right?
Oh,
crazy.
I needed
Totally
to mention the Angry Cops thing.
Angry Cops,
the Buffalo PD detective.
Oh, yeah. Let's save that for after we shut off the TikTok.
Okay.
Because I don't want my TikTok getting banned in the 30 seconds after recording time today. But no, that'll be... I'm getting ready to shut that off here in a second. But if you guys don't know, we're Biblically Accurate Bigfoot. We try to approach controversial topics through a biblical lens with a bit of humor. And so if you're joining us...
A lot of bit.
Yeah, a lot of bit of humor.
Humor
and always, as always, nothing we say is real. It's all make-believe and alleged and just for funsies.
Bottle of humor.
Yeah. So...
Labba boomer.
Take that, Google.
Hobbit.
What? I don't know. But, yeah.
Hila baba boom.
I don't... Did you see that one? There's that one dude. He's, I think he's a TikToker. He went up to a dude and he's like, oh gosh, I can't even remember it. Oh yeah, he's like, ooh, ee, ooh, and then he puts the mic in the dude's face and he's like, are you calling me a monkey? And he's like, whoa. That escalated real fast. Because he's trying to get him to sing the ting tang.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I laughed I watched it like 15 times.
That's amazing.
All right. You were going to bring up the Buffalo thing.
Yeah.
Now that we finally got the TikTok shut off.
So I think it's worth pointing out major injustices and problems that people can potentially have an effect on. And the Buffalo school system in Buffalo, New York is under some serious scrutiny right now. There's another podcast that I watch fairly frequently. It's mostly like veterans, first responders, gun tubers, stuff like that. Really cool guys, genuine dudes. And one of the guys that they have on fairly frequently is Angry Cops, Drill Sergeant Rich High. And he's a drill sergeant with the Army, and he's also a detective for the Special Victims Unit in Buffalo PD. And he's been a part of an investigation into Buffalo school system where there's been some really, really messed up stuff going either unreported or ignored regarding child abuse and child sex crimes and stuff like that. And the school system and their legal team are just like straight up obstructing investigations. Like they're not responding to subpoenas, and they're like it's a problem. They are actively obstructing justice being done against people who are harming children. Yeah. So go check out. You're probably seeing bits of it on if you get any news stuff on your YouTube feed. You'll probably come across there's local reporting going on it. But it's a lot of it's pretty negative toward Rich, who is just a super genuine dude, and it's just crap. It's just crap that they're trying to deflect and basically calling them false accusations, and it's just there's no reason for it. So go show them some support and make your voice heard and let people know that we're not cool with that type of thing.
Yeah. It's and even just there's the ministry group called I think it's Voice for the Martyrs. That the concept of that I'm huge on, and with this, it's obviously this isn't a Christian issue. No, but it is something that in my mind Christians should take a stand on. And there's a few different things that we try to not really get ourselves involved in, but just at least try to bring some awareness to.
Yeah, and conspiracy theories and corruption, like government corruption, political corruption, it's in schools too. And so, I mean, this definitely falls within, I think, our scope of things that we talk about and look at. I mean, we had a whole episode about university unethical studies and stuff like that. Yeah. This is just the school, elementary and secondary education level. So. Right.
And before I get that one random comment, because there's always one.
Don't be that person.
I know. But before I get that one random comment, I'm just going to say that we're not saying all schools are corrupt. We're saying that when corruption occurs in a school, we should take a stand, because these are our kids.
Don't mess with kids.
And I am a firm believer. I'm not big on the Obama era mindset of kids belong to society. Yeah. I kind of fit along more I align more with the thought process that as parents, it's our jobs to raise our kids up the right way. And sometimes that right way is counterculture. And I mean, at this point, if you're an American and you're a Christian and you believe that Jesus is your Lord and Savior, you are counterculture. If you follow Christ and you actually follow what Christ commanded, you should be counterculture. Yep. We should not align with culture in general, whether that's no matter which side of the political aisle you're on. We are counterculture. We should be, and we've always been counterculture. And as a result, I think that things like this are important for us to not swim downstream on. Some of the most difficult things are going to be us needing to swim upstream on. And this is one of those arguments and fights that I think it's important. And so just to do it justice, this is one of those issues that I think that everybody should go listen to it. Yeah. At least the first, I
want people to be aware.
10 minutes of it.
I just want people to be aware that this is going on and let other people know that this is going on, and just get people aware. Yeah. I just want awareness spread of this situation, right? Because it goes deeper than just, because it's beyond just the school thing too. It's like you have the legal system and the problems that that whole thing has. Some of which I get to deal with firsthand. Fortunately, I haven't had to deal with any this scale, but it is a problem, and this is a very clear instance of people using the system to protect people who should not be protected and need to face the consequences of their actions.
And kind of as he explained in the full podcast, it's not even a podcast, it's a YouTube video that he purposely didn't put on the podcast because he doesn't want to jeopardize the podcast.
Yep, they opted to do it in the after show and just post it as a separate video.
Yeah. And one of the things he says is that he's like, I don't know for sure if this is people afraid that they would lose money, or if this is people who are trying to protect someone, or if this is people, and he kind of goes into like I don't know which of these it is.
Yeah.
But one thing we can stand firm on is that when you're hiding this stuff, you're in the wrong.
Yep.
And it needs to be brought to light. And as Christians, 100%, this has been an issue where I feel like sometimes when people who refuse to get involved in church will point to church corruption that occurs in the same kind of light as this. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those things where I've always said corruption occurs. It's going to occur in the church world. It's going to occur in the public school world. It's going to occur in the, business world. Corruption occurs. And our job as Christians is to shine the light on sin.
Yep.
And if it occurs in the church, then to heck with the church. Like that church, they need, you know what I mean? Not small C, not big C, church, in that sometimes it's worth it to, or not sometimes though, it's always worth it to shine the light on sin.
Yep.
And sometimes that means that institutions need to fall.
Yeah.
And this is one of those situations where, in my mind, the light needs to shine, and there's going to be a lot of people who need to answer for why.
Yeah.
And the only way that's going to happen is through people becoming more and more aware of it.
It needs pressured.
Yeah.
It needs to be pressured.
Because as it is right now, it can be silenced. It's not common enough knowledge that as of right now, it could be silenced.
Yep. Yeah. So if you listen to us, but you're not familiar with Unsubscribe Podcast, go watch that video on their channel. Bit of a trigger warning. It talks about some messed up stuff.
Yeah.
So just be aware, like it's important, but it's also pretty heavy.
And it's not, I'll word it this way, it is not a clean channel.
No. Yeah, that's
by any means.
I meant to say.
So you've got swear words, you've got, so if you are going to listen to it with discretion and discretion.
I wouldn't call it family friendly. It's not family friendly, but it is very important.
But it is important. Yeah. And so go listen to it. And I listened to the whole thing, and I would say at least listen to the first 10 minutes and you get a pretty good scope of everything.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of the hiding of information, I'm not going to say her name because I'm pretty sure they're shadow banning her name. But the lady who was a whistleblower, we'll put it, to the Einstein.
Oh, yes.
If you don't know what I'm saying when I say Einstein, reference an old episode, but where we talk about how you can say what it is. It was like Cumberbatch cucumber or whatever, and you know what we're talking about. You know who we're talking about, kind of thing. The Benedict Cumberbatch. You don't have to actually say his name in order for you to understand. So I'm saying Einstein because it sounds enough like it that you know what I'm talking about. And Jeff Einstein, who
didn't.
Secondary conspiracy theory that I'm going to go on a rabbit trail really quickly. I think he's alive.
Oh.
I left the noise in last episode.
That?
I don't know, but I hope that the podcast caught it because that was hilarious.
Did I heard the crap
Oh my gosh, I don't know what it was.
In the ancient days of giants, when the earth was wild and free, a creature roamed the valleys, cloaked in mystery. Is he born of angels' blood and man, a Nephilim so tall, or a shadow of the fallen, yet he the maker's call? He's a biblically accurate Bigfoot, with a lineage from the skies. Not a myth or legend, but a truth that never dies. Is he a remnant of the Nephilim, a titan standing tall? Or does he have the word of God upon him, the last to hear the call?
But anyway, I think that that whole thing was a setup, and he's actually kicking and hanging out. But anyway, one of his accusers and one of the people who pointed the finger at some English royalty, apparently just yesterday took her own life. And no, not yesterday. This is like 4 or 5 days ago. Took her own life. And then yesterday, she had a dead man switch that activated and sent out and notified people that, hey, I haven't checked in more than 2 days. Therefore, they likely got to me. And now what was involved in that, we don't know yet. The only thing that they've released was her voice saying, hey, this is me. And I've activated, and basically her just saying what I just said.
Right.
And then subsequently, her family began and launched an independent investigation after her family had allegedly said that she had been falling on hard times, blah, 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 for all these like CNN articles and stuff. And then all of a sudden, independently, her family is launching their own independent investigation. Tells me that everything that the mainstream media said that her family said, they didn't actually say.
Oh, she was a smart cookie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why would you not?
Well, yeah, but I mean, like
you have
But think about how many people haven't had that plan in place.
Yep.
That's dedication too, because she knew that was probably going to happen.
Yep.
So,
but yeah.
Wow.
Again, I'm not even going to mention the name because I'm pretty sure that anything is just getting buried at this point. And we don't want to fall into that.
Not buried.
And if you, and frankly, it fits into our theme of, we want you to do your own research and never listen to us and take our word for everything anyway, because we not only are wrong, we have been wrong, where we've had to come back later and been like, hey, we were wrong about that, and apologize. And not in the sense of like big things, like, because the conspiracy theory stuff, we pretty
Jesus died on the cross for your sins and rose from the grave 3 days later. That happened.
Right.
We're not recanting that.
No. But on the thing, but the some of the things that, like, the smaller things, but like anything that's a conspiracy theory, we just try to put the information in your hands anyway. I don't know why my body is making that noise with the carbonation, but it is happening, and I will have to edit that.
No, just leave it.
Oh, too late.
You can leave the click in too.
Yeah, so people know. They'll probably be really annoying. But anyway,
I don't care.
But
we're really annoying.
Red called me out. He was like, typical Tanner, saying he's going to edit something out and then leaving it in anyway.
Yeah.
Speaking of Red, I ran into him at Walmart.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What's up, dude?
Yeah, I talked to him a little bit about when he's going to come on the show, and he wants you two need to get together and figure out a time and place, or not time and place, time and time and day. There we go. I was like, location is not the right word.
Red, if I haven't messaged you by the time you hear this, message me and we'll figure something out.
Spam the snot out of him, like 50 text messages. Just repeated over and over again.
It's typically the only way people get a response.
That is the only way.
I'm terrible about that.
Yep.
So,
but if you don't watch one of the TikToks he sends you, he gets appalled.
That's not true. That is simply not true.
Oh, man. None of the things that we've talked about have been on my list of things I wanted to talk about yet.
Cool.
So that takes a little bit of pressure off of having to come up with information.
Yep.
So did you hear about the power outages this last week?
No.
Okay. So France, Spain, and Portugal lost power.
Wow. That's a pretty big area.
Yeah. And they don't know why.
Why don't they know why?
Because they just straight up don't know why.
They
literally don't know why. So that's led to theories of, oh, well, it's got to be hacking, or it's got to be, terrorism or whatever, something like that.
I feel like those are not that difficult to pinpoint. Like, I mean, as for the intent behind it, maybe, but like, it's not that. I feel like it's not that difficult to diagnose. Like, oh, this is the thing that happened. We don't know why it happened, but this is what happened.
Well, and typically when that happens, it doesn't just wipe everything out.
Also, 3 separate countries.
Yeah. So
like that's a pretty wide targeted attack if it's an attack.
Right.
That's kind of bonkers. That's not typically a thing that happens, especially, was it all at the same time?
Yeah. Just boom. And then they set up a state of emergency.
That's hacking 3. Okay, so just assuming it is hacking, that's hacking 3 different countries' separate electrical grids in like that much infrastructure, and 3 different infrastructure. That's crazy.
Well, and then earlier in the week, Okay, this is, if you're from Puerto Rico, I apologize, because these two countries are very vastly different. But I can't remember if it was Puerto Rico or Cuba. But one of those two countries experienced a basically like nationwide blackout as well.
You didn't apologize to the Cubans.
Yeah.
So
they should want
you
to
just
be more like Puerto Ricans.
So I was gonna say. So
Hey, we have
you
listeners.
just hard dissed the Cubans unintentionally.
We have listeners from Puerto Rico. We do not have listeners from Cuba. That's all I'll say. And there's reasons why. But so I was doing some research on the power outage because there was like videos of just like people who recorded it, and man, it's like the subways weren't working, the streetlights were like full blown.
How'd they record it?
Well, they recorded it and then uploaded it later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Sorry if I sounded like a moron there. What I meant wasn't how did they record it. I'm aware that cell phones have batteries, but how did they upload it is what I meant.
Well, and sometimes, and I know that like you could be on that kind of the outer edge.
I was going to say, I guess there is the fact that if you're close to another country that doesn't have the power down,
right?
Or
if because I know a lot of cell phone towers have
satellite capabilities as well.
Yeah, there's what is that? Is that Samsung's newest phone has satellite capabilities now?
Oh.
I think it's, and also there's the like Starlink and stuff like that.
Right,
You can do,
right.
and then not only that, but a lot of cell phone towers actually have like generators on hand that will run for like a couple hours after an outage.
Okay.
So that's possible.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I didn't look too much into that.
Sorry, my technological brain is still in like 2005.
Yeah.
On a lot of things.
The power outages, that's not conspiracy or anything. Like that was covered on mainstream news very briefly, I might add. Just, they're experiencing power outages. Move on. Well, come to find out, it's not a small thing, and they still don't really know why. And so they're starting to say, well, so the actual official government reason was an electrical anomaly caused it.
I love that word.
Yeah.
Makes me think of stalker.
Yeah. So my brain, when I hear electrical anomaly, I think of a full-blown geomagnetic storm that just sucker punched Earth.
Yep.
So I started doing some looking. Guess what? There was nothing from the sun that could have caused that yesterday. Nothing.
Interesting.
But a electrical anomaly. So I was looking at that. I was watching some YouTube videos and doing some research and looking stuff up. And there's a guy, I'll give him credit. His YouTube is called Space Weather News. He's a pretty big voice in the space weather community. Mm-hmm. And he was talking.
I think he's the one that covered that mass coronal ejection that they were talking about might wipe out Earth.
Yes. So he was talking and he okay, so this is where this story gets, it's interesting, and it gets significantly more interesting as he keeps talking. If you want to go find his most recent video about it, it'll take you 5 seconds to find it. But so basically he starts explaining how basically what happened from what he can observe. He was like, I went through and I looked at it, and what did cause the power outages yesterday, as well as the one in, I'm pretty sure it was Puerto Rico. But the one in Puerto Rico as well was something very normal coming from the sun that comes and hits us very regularly. But for some reason, and the way he equated it was, it's almost like, if you go to give somebody like a love tap, and instead of, like you're not mass punching, you're not haymaker, you're just giving them that little like, hey, love tap thing. And for some reason, when you do it, it just like fractures 50 bones in their jaw, in
I want it recorded that Tanner has hit me 3 times this episode.
Yep. Yeah, I did. But, and so the issue isn't with the person who gave the love tap. The issue is with the person who got punched, because something is clearly not right. right? Something is broken. Something's not working right. If a tiny little love tap that you've given somebody a million times before, literally uncountable times before, all of a sudden fractures their jaw. Well, this is something that hits Earth regularly. And for some reason, our planet let it through and it just wreaked havoc. And so he was like, so my question is, why? Why did something that is completely normal, has hit us billions of times before, all of a sudden doing damage? And so he starts going in and he starts talking about how NASA has been releasing information. Okay. And they just talked about how one of the moons on Jupiter called
On Jupiter? One of Jupiter's moons?
Yeah. Not on Jupiter. Shut up.
I will not. I'm saving you from my mom.
One of the moons on Jupiter had the largest volcanic eruption in our solar system's history recently. Interesting. And why? Why does it seem to line up? Well, okay. So I'm gonna just read this so I don't misconstrue what he was saying.
Okay.
By trying to do it from memory, and I did write these down in notes. So basically he's saying that other planets are having eruptions, and the volcano on Jupiter erupted and had the largest volcanic event in our
Jupiter, or one of its moons?
One of its moons.
Okay.
On the moon of one of the moons of Jupiter had the largest volcanic eruption in the history of our solar system, basically, that at least that we have been able to document. Yeah. My thought process starts going, are these the birthing pains that it talks about in the Bible? Is this starting to see trends? And so he said that he has been noticing, and this is his hypothesis, is that the sun's magnetic field has been shifting and it's been releasing more and more helium isotopes. And helium content on the sun and being released from the sun is just constantly going up. And his mindset is that there is a chemical change going on in the corona of the sun, causing possibly a shift, maybe like a pole shift on the sun, which would then affect every planet. Yeah. Because that's a big deal. Like I'm not a planetary scientist, but if Pluto's poles shifted, it might affect us, but it's going to be like a whoop-de-doo. But if the sun poles shift, that's a big deal. Yeah. And so then he said that, so James Webb finally pointed and began to observe Neptune and Uranus. And they began to check out Neptune in infrared. And what they saw from it was that the auroras went from the pole across the equator to the other pole, which to him at least, and to other scientists, indicates that Neptune is experiencing a magnetic pole reversal as well. So then NASA is focusing on and talking about Uranus, and NASA explained this. And just kind of in passing, they're talking about how the weather on Uranus is really interesting, and they're able to observe some stuff, and they just kind of slipped it in one of their articles that the poles are shifting on Uranus as well. And this wasn't like this guy is saying this. Like, no, NASA in their article said, we can see the weather events more clearly because the poles are shifting on Uranus. So now we got poles shifting all over the place. We've got volcanic events occurring. And so what he's saying is that a plasma ejection coming from the sun through space, for some reason, broke through a weak spot in the Earth's magnetic field. Why is it weak?
Maybe the poles are shifting.
Maybe the poles are shifting.
It
was Puerto Rico. I do have it on my notes. See, I knew it.
Screw you, Cuba.
So then he brought up So in
kidding. I'm kidding. You're
the
not
last,
listening anyway.
Yeah, they're not able to hear it. If they are, they've got a VPN and they're pretending that they're from Puerto Rico anyway.
You just want to be so bad.
But anyway, so they dug up a couple mammoths in Siberia recently.
I want to be me.
Unhinged.
I need help.
Oh, yeah, but I cannot offer the help
I
that
know.
you need. Only Jesus.
Nobody
bro.
can. Yeah.
Only Jesus.
I'm sorry.
And maybe some drugs. Okay.
Give me that Manson good. What am I on?
So
I'm already on the drug.
Okay. All right. We can rein this in. Maybe.
What's the we? What's this we?
I am gonna rein this in.
Good luck.
Okay. So they dug up a couple mammoths from Siberia. From I think it was Siberia, like way up into the Arctic Circle. And what they observed, and maybe you remember hearing about this, because I remember hearing about this too, that when they took them and they began to like look at them a little bit closer, they realized that they had completely undigested food in their stomach and undigested food in their mouths. What could possibly cause a mammoth to his stomach no longer digest after it passes away? Because from my understanding, what's in your stomach still continues to digest even after you're gone, just because, and it's not like digesting in the sense of like it's bringing nutrients to your body, but digesting in the sense that
It's decomposing
it's
rapidly
acid
due to the acid.
Yeah,
like
you
that.
literally have acid in your stomach, and that acid isn't all of a sudden neutral just because
You're dead.
you die. And so so he goes, okay, now think about this. They were eating food, a lot of food, enough food that their bellies were full and their mouth was full, and then they died. What could cause them to die that rapidly?
Right.
And not only that, but think about this. They had plenty of food that far up north to the point where they were buried under like 26 feet of snow or something. Like there was a ridiculous amount of snow on top of them. So they're like up there in the Arctic Circle to where plant life doesn't grow. Well, there was when they were walking the earth, apparently. And this was 10,000 years ago during the Ice Age Max. The ice would have been worse. It would have been colder there, right? What are they doing there? What if that wasn't actually the North Pole at that time? What if the poles were in different places and therefore...
Well, okay. A bit of difference between the magnetic pole and the axis
Right.
pole. Not that couldn't be affected by that.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying. But I mean,
But
sorry,
they
I agree
clearly
with your
weren't.
terminology, not your idea.
No, this isn't my idea. This is this guy's idea.
But I mean, like the thought process. I just have beef with the terminology.
So he's saying
It was the
that-
North Pole, but it might not have been.
Yeah, the location
the
was
current
still
magnetic pole.
the location was still the same.
Place.
They weren't
The Earth didn't
transported
stop spinning on the same axis.
Yeah, they weren't all of a sudden transported to a different spot on Earth. Like they were there on that planet.
Yeah.
But what he's saying is, what if when, and I don't know if, and maybe I'm filling in the dots here with what his hypothesis is, but what if when the poles shift, it actually causes
Climate change to the point that place could have been
right.
a totally different.
And if not climate change, then, and this is where I am way out of my league, but connecting the dots of what if the magnetics of the Earth actually affect the rotation of the Earth as well. And the magnetics of the sun affect the rotations of the Earth as well. So what if the sun's shift and the earth's shift can throw that quote unquote wobble out of balance enough that it would begin to move at a rapid enough pace, and not like, I'm not saying like instantaneously it was wobbling different because we would be just thrown, but fast enough that the mammoths couldn't retreat to a different location or didn't know where to retreat to because it was different than what was normal for them.
I'll just put it to you this way. If Nebraska becomes a tropical paradise in like 15, 20 years because the poles shift and we are the new equator, that's cool.
Well, think about this. So Egypt, the Sahara.
Well, don't do this to me.
The Sahara goes through patterns of very wet and very dry seasons about how many years apart? About the same period of time, about 10,000. When was the last time? I think it's between 6 and 10. I'd have to look that up. Don't quote me on that, but I want to say it's between 6 and 10,000. When was the last time that the area we're in Nebraska, was more like a desert? 6 to 10,000 years ago.
Like that, yeah.
Something between 6 and 12,000 years, allegedly, depending on. I think that those numbers are exaggerated a little bit. I think it's more closely like 3 to 5.
Yeah, you know, I don't know that makes me feel better about this.
Yeah, I know, but
I understand. I know what you're saying, but
but that's just me. Because I don't really agree with the dating methods that are out there. But something significant occurs pretty consistently, weather-wise, and dramatically changes the weather patterns on Earth.
Uh-huh.
What if that's it? Or maybe better yet, another hypothetical question. This is just, again, I'm not even trying to say what I think it actually is. I'm just relaying what this guy said and encouraging you go watch his video to get the more intelligent person's description, because he does a good job of describing it. He does a good job of describing it. And I do not, but I want to put that information out there from the notes of what I took from his show.
Just to kind of draw a connection back to other things that we've talked about, that type of weather pattern change could definitely also lend some credibility to like Bird and Atlantis and stuff like that. Heck, the pyramids. I mean, that all could have been totally different.
Yeah.
Types of terrain that those were all built in.
Right. Speaking of the pyramids, you know, the pyramids are one that there's a lot of the scientific community that believe the wear and tear, the erosion on the pyramids and the Sphinx are actually caused by water and not by wind and the environments that's there.
Right.
So, but they also think that they were constructed, 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. What if they're not wrong on the timeline, that it was, 3,000 to 6,000 years ago or whatever?
Right.
But they're wrong in that the weather patterns shifted dramatically. And so think about this. So right now, Israel, that whole region, it's not necessarily considered like the greatest, most fertile place on Earth.
No.
But yet at one point in time, it was the Garden of Eden, or at least somewhere near there.
Right.
And it was this lush, it was the promised land.
Yeah.
God promised them an inferior product.
An area is called the Fertile Crescent.
Right.
I always thought that was ironic when I learned that in history, or geography, or whatever the crap class that was.
During the end of days, it talks about how the rains will return and it will begin to be a fertile land again. What if this is just another sign of something changing? And I'm a firm believer in that God ordains the natural because that is his heartbeat. That's not his literal heartbeat, but like, you know what I mean? Like he loves nature.
Yeah.
And so he speaks through nature, like he spoke to through the burning bush, he talks about the fire on the mountain, and he uses nature. He uses nature to point us to him. And he even talks about how the rocks will cry out. Well, he uses nature because the nature is so, because I mean, he created it. And I think that sometimes there's things like this that for us in the science world, you're trying to explain it and it's hard to explain. It's hard to even like, I mean, even what we have, it's all just theories anyway, but it's theories of how to explain something that we observe happening and we call it nature. But what if it's just the breath of God? You know, it's just him enacting something.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be able to observe a lot of this stuff in some way and we just call it science. But in reality, it's, you know, but anyway. But yeah, and so what if there's going to be a dramatic shift again to the end of days, and that is going to cause the rains to return to that region and it will begin to be fertile again. And if that happens, that's going to mess up the weather patterns everywhere else. And calm down, sir. For those listening, he just jacked his elbow on his mic, so that's what you probably heard because I'm going to leave it in. But like, look at even what we're seeing with just all of the weird stuff that just like the mass coronal ejection that we saw, you know, like that became so significant that I know people in like Alabama that saw it through their phone, but they saw it.
Yeah.
And from what I've understood from people smarter than me explaining it, they don't really know why it was visible that far south because it shouldn't have been based off of how powerful it was.
Right.
It wasn't that powerful.
Well,
or it shouldn't have. Oh, I don't know how to word it. It was powerful. It was significantly powerful. I'm not trying to say it wasn't because that's not what they say. But what they're saying is that the level of it. Yeah,
the level of it didn't match up with where it was. Like it wasn't that level of.
And powerful. What if it just happened to line up with a weird and maybe our Earth's magnetic sphere is just it's you know that tension when and I don't this is me just thinking through my primitive brain because I don't really fully understand this, but when you have magnets and you begin to like shift and move them around, there's that wobble. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And what if this is that wobble that it's starting to shift and you're starting to see that wobble and they can't really explain why some of this stuff is happening because it doesn't match what they've observed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you remember when we went out and watched that event?
Yeah. Yeah,
Do you remember where the kind of apex of that appeared to be? Like
it was
the
like
origin?
above our heads.
Yeah. That's
and even to the south at times.
That's what I was thinking. It was like nearly straight up or a bit south.
Yeah.
So
yeah, to the north, the north you could record with your phone and get the pretty colors.
Right.
But the pulsing that we could see with our visible eyes came from above and to the south.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
That was not to the north.
Yeah. That's kind of what I thought.
So what if that was just a weakening of the magnetic sphere or like I don't know what the terminology is because this isn't my field of study. Right. So in case the listeners think that I'm smarter than I am, but what if there's just like a fissure, you know?
Yeah. Space.
Psychology, man. I'm major in people. So I don't, I'm a pastor. And so I major in people. So I don't, but this stuff intrigues me enough that I study it, but I'm not a scientist, but what if that event, the reason why it was so visible was because there was just a weird, wobble in the magnetic sphere when it happened to hit.
Yeah.
Or let's go on another conspiracy theory route. What if HAARP is causing these wobbles and it has nothing to do with the sun, has nothing to do.
It's not the natural changing of.
But it's our governments. And maybe not even necessarily the U.S., but a government.
Probably U.S.
Also, I wouldn't put it past China as well. And I'm of the firm mindset that anything that the U.S. is doing, China is probably trying to do too. Mm-hmm. And so what if, you saw the stuff about China with the cloning superhumans and stuff like that we talked about during the Dire Wolf episode. Mm-hmm. Yep. They're doing it, and so I can only imagine they probably have a few HAARPs there too. And what if it was just them doing a little experiment, Mm-hmm. Think about it. Like the science community in the world as a whole, they make a lot of decisions based off of, so these horrible things could happen if you do this and it's successful. Yeah, guess we'll just have to find out.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
So what if this is an event of, we're trying an experiment and seeing what happens, and, well, these countries lost power. Wait, maybe we can direct this, you know? What if it's just an early, like them experimenting with it and just, I mean, Europe isn't exactly our friend right now just because of the political climate going on. I don't know, some hypotheticals thrown out there.
Yeah, for sure.
What if it was full blown just a EMP that now is no longer a blast, but that they can direct using something like HARP, direct an EMP somewhere, and maybe it missed, or maybe it hit exactly where they wanted it to hit. You know, because I mean, think about going back to the episodes with the CIA and all of the things that they're trying to do. A lot of this stuff feels like controlled chaos. It feels like chaos to us, but it seems like those who are in charge aren't experiencing the same chaos that we're experiencing, which means that there's information that they have that we don't have.
Yeah, I hate that.
Right. But then again, all of the elites are building underground bunkers and stuff. What if this is just the writing on the wall that the elites have the information to and us peasants don't, you know? Not to fearmonger, because we've got Jesus, and that's, I mean, all that really matters. But
yeah, I'm down to watch the end of the world.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Bro, dude, could you imagine being an end time saint? Like,
that'd be dope.
Bro, that would be so fun.
Yeah.
You'd also die a horrible death.
Suffer brutal ending.
But in the few moments leading up to that. But I also think you don't necessarily feel pain the same way. Because like when Stephen was stoned, you know, he wasn't crying out, oh, I'm in so much agony. He was saying like, crying out to God. You know, he's like, my Lord, you know, like, I don't have the exact quotes in front of me. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And so he sees into heaven. And so, well, not heaven. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get my theology, because there will be that one guy who will message me in the comments or the Discord and be like, your theology's off.
Again, don't be that person.
You know,
you will.
But the whole point is, you know, I think that martyrs, I think God protects them from some of that pain. I think, I really do. Because it seems like throughout Scripture, you see martyr after martyr almost just kind of protected from that pain, you know, other than Jesus.
Yeah.
It seems like Jesus took the full pain. But I feel like martyrs, my belief at least, I feel like it would make sense if martyrs were protected from that pain. Because then if
I get martyred, I'm going to be so mad at you if I feel all the pain.
Right. Well, like, look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Yeah.
I mean, they also were protected, but they were still in the heat.
Right.
Even if they were protected from the fire burning them, they were still in the heat and they didn't feel it. So clearly God can protect them. And so even if he's not going to protect your life, I feel like he would still protect you know. I don't know. That's just a theory.
I reckon I'll probably find out at some point.
Either that or...
If we're approaching the end times, I reckon we'll figure it out.
Right. But then again, also, you know, the writers of the Bible, they had... parchment was expensive and hard to come by at times. And so they tended to write what was important. And in those stories, the pain wasn't important.
Yeah.
And so it's possible they just didn't write about the pain. They just wrote about, you know. So that's also possible. But anyway, speaking of science... and doing things that are dumb, that don't really have, or that could potentially end the Earth. Have you ever heard of the Ghost of the Hadron Collider?
So I did a little bit of reading on this.
Yeah, this one's fun. This is not. So it sounds like Ghost of Hadron, or particle of CERN. The Ghost of CERN is what it's called. Yeah. Right? CERN.
I don't know. I didn't catch that.
Hadron Collider. CERN owns it, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, continue.
But
Go.
anyway, so what I found was basically, I found a lot of people talking about Brian Cox saying that it proved that ghosts are not real. But there's kind of speculation on that, because there is something that they have nicknamed, or not really nicknamed, but they refer to as, is it ghost particles? Is that what they...
Yeah, there's ghost particles are different than the ghost of CERN.
Okay, then I did not find what you were talking about.
So, go ahead.
So the ghost particles they were talking about is basically the the thought behind the Hadron Collider is that if there is energy that like is behind humans and like our consciousness and whatever is beyond our physical form, if that exists outside of our bodies, then in theory, the Hadron Collider should be able to detect it. Is that kind of what you found from that?
Yeah, in theory, yeah.
And so they were kind of like, well, since we haven't found that, that means it's not real. There's nothing there. Except for there's been a couple of times where there was something else that was detected.
Yeah.
Hard to explain exactly what it was, but a form of energy or particle or something that doesn't behave the way normal particles do, and it can go through like walls and other materials and stuff like that, and it's just not really consistent and doesn't really follow typical thermodynamic law abiding particles.
And so that, I think that's the ghost particle, right?
Yeah. So I didn't find the thing you were talking about.
That's still intriguing.
It is very intriguing. I find that very interesting, and I want to do more research on it.
I didn't look into the ghost particle, but I did see a couple references to it. The ghost of CERN is a little bit different. Okay. And so something in as the particles were accelerating, every once in a while, there would just be an anomaly that they couldn't explain. And not with the particle, just like the particle would just behave wrong. And seemed like for a long time, no rhyme or reason. And so they started tracking it and couldn't really figure out what was going on. And it was just like, almost like, and so they started calling it the ghost of CERN. It was almost like it would just be random, just completely random. And it was almost like something was entering into the particle accelerator and affecting the particles just, I mean, not even microscopically, like infinitesimally small, but just enough, because those things are calibrated at a level that's like precise. And so, but it was throwing them off just enough randomly that they were like, this doesn't make sense to us. Something is affecting this. So they began to track it, and they began to track it through, they said 4D. So, and I was like, what? I can't track it in 4D. So the fourth dimension that they included was time. And so they started tracking it, and they began to, I don't know, almost like see a pattern start to come about based off of the time. And it created, when they mapped it out, it created this weird like infinity symbol that's like a helix. Hang on. So it created this like double helix, like almost looks like if you were to take DNA and turn it into a repeating like infinity symbol. Crazy like semblance. And so then, and this is where I recognize that I don't know enough to know, but it smells kind of like bull to me, is that they then decided that what caused that was a magnet being microscopically off.
Must have been the wind.
That's what it sounded like to me when they explained it. And then they were like, this will be vitally important for future Hadron Colliders when they, are building it, because then they can incorporate this information into it and prevent this from happening. And for me, I'm like, I don't know enough to know, but that being mapped out like that doesn't look like magnetic interference to me. I'm talking about magnetic interference. So what if it actually is something going in and getting caught, like just passing through or something, I'll drop the image in the Discord.
That is interesting.
But and so this is one where I just don't know enough to even really like come up with a formal hypothesis, but it's just really intriguing. And I will admit, what drew me to the topic was the fact that it was called the Ghost of CERN. So I was like, oh, this is intriguing. This would be good on the podcast. But then the way that they go about trying to figure out what it is falls solely in the scientific realm. And if you solely research things in a scientific manner, you're going to find results in a scientific way. And so maybe not even the ghost of CERN, but kind of going back to looking at like the weird power outage and the sun and all these other things doing this. If you start to add an element of conspiracy theory, things start clicking a little bit. If you add an element of biblical prophecy, things start clicking a little bit. You start adding these elements in that are non-scientific, that are there's an external force acting upon the science. And for me, it seems to just make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why historically scientists, Christian scientists, made such significant breakthroughs, because they studied things recognizing that there was an outside influence affecting it. Therefore, they could then see the science in its purest form. And why it seems like when you, I don't know, but I feel like when you do look in this stuff and you're looking this stuff up, because I mean, look at the Shroud of Turin. The original science said this was from 1000 AD. This cannot be the burial cloth of Jesus. And now science has advanced. They did a little bit more research. They began to look at it a little deeper. And now all of a sudden, boom, no, we can very much verify that this came from right around exactly like 30 AD.
Yeah.
Oh, wouldn't you know? It very well could be the thing that we're saying it is. And so science is all of a sudden different. And science is impure because of the fact, and I don't know, this is me just talking and rambling for a minute because this was not in my notes. But I think what brings science to a fruition of reality and truth is when you recognize the influences that are the external influences that are not scientific, that are either human or God influencing it.
Yep.
And so when I go back to the original story of the power outage, and now all of a sudden if you add in an element of either humans or God, all of a sudden the picture feels to me a little bit more visible. It's less blurry. Less blurry, man. Anyway, if you're in the Discord, you know what I'm talking about there. But the last thing, and so kind of transitioning time-wise just to kind of get through the information today, the last thing that I want to talk about, and I fully recognize that I am talking a lot on this episode, but you can blame Phil for that.
You absolutely can. I'm friggin' tired today, and I don't know why. The caffeine is not doing the caffeine thing.
Caffeine isn't caffeining. You needed more caffeine. Drink your other caffeine.
Okay.
You think
I won't do it? You really think that I won't do it?
Have you seen anything about the American Egyptian who is claiming that he is the true Pope?
Not other than
just what I...
Yeah.
So his name is Abdullah Hashim Abba al-Sadiq.
That is a mouthful.
Do you know what that translates to?
I do not.
Peace be upon him.
Sounds nice.
Who typically says that when they reference anything about God or Jesus or prophets or significant religious figures?
Tell the audience.
Muslims. They always respond with, if you talk about Jesus, they'll say the name of Jesus, and then they'll follow it up with a PBUH.
It's racist. Banned, canceled.
It's a religion, not a race.
They don't care.
This dude's white. This dude care. Talking about white Jesus. This dude is claiming that he is the successor. The dude who rightfully succeeds Jesus, and he is
succeeds.
But he looks
succeeds me.
He looks like he should work for Black Rifle Coffee Company. Have you seen him?
No, I have not.
Hey, that dude. Tell me that dude shouldn't work for Black Rifle Coffee Company. If you threw him,
that man is former SAS.
For real. He's so apparently he's 32 years old, and if I almost, you know what? I'm gonna just play the clip that I have.
I am Abdullah, the successor of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, the successor of the Comforter Ahmed, the successor of Simon Peter, the successor of Muhammad, the successor of Jesus Christ. I am the true and legitimate Pope. I am the proof upon the Christians. I am the son of the Muslims through my father, and the son of the Christians and the Jews through my mother. I am the son of the East through my father, and the son of the West through my mother. I am like Zulkarnain, who with one horn in the east and one in the west, and I am the inheritor of all that lies between. I am more knowledgeable than any false pope, and I am appointed by name in the will of the prophets. My name is also on the tongue of Isaiah, who prophesied of the righteous servant, and he said, he will see his offspring and prolong his days, and the will of the Lord will prosper in his hand.
That is terrifying.
That's bonkers, right? So this dude's been he's been around for a minute, and I feel like an early episode we briefly talked about him.
I do not remember that.
And I mean briefly, so it wouldn't surprise me that you don't remember it. But he recently went viral because of that video. And so in the meantime of the last time that I remember him popping up to now, he's gained quite the following. He's no longer a little teeny tiny little leader of a tiny sect of Islam. Like, he is gaining some popularity. And he claims that he is in that video, you hear a lot of the I ams. I am the this, I am the that. And he also claims a lot of I'm the successor to of Jesus, of Muhammad, of Peter, and so he's literally claiming that he is, basically he's claiming that he's the Messiah at this point of these other religions. He's basically claiming that he is the one, and their belief is that their Messiah will come and unite the people. He's basically claiming that I am the uniting of the people. He's basically saying that, like, I am Christian on my mom's side, I am Muslim or Christian and Jew on my mom's side, I am Muslim on my dad's side, and he's saying all of these things that, like, it's a lot of things that he's claiming.
Yeah.
And so no matter what, he is a false prophet. He might not be the false prophet, but he's a false prophet, basically claiming that, or at least if he's not claiming he's a prophet, then he's a false Christ. He's an antichrist. Now, again, maybe not the antichrist, but an antichrist. And Jesus did kind of warn us that this would happen in the end days, that there would be people that were claiming and to not pay them any attention, really, basically. And for me, it's not even hey, we should be worried about this guy. This guy is, my intimidating voice, this guy is so important. We need to be paying so much attention. You need to be looking, and we need to be praying against him. And I'm not even saying those things. I'm just saying this dude is concerningly sketchy in the sense of, and for me, I guess, all of the things he's claiming, and we talked about it last episode, I think, too, of it's not a case of him by himself. All of a sudden, I'm like, the end days are here.
Right.
But it's more of there's a lot of crazy stuff happening. There's a lot of prophecies that are being fulfilled. There's a lot of, you look at the third temple being built and the red heifer and
somebody posted in the Discord that they've anointed they've selected a priest for that. Is that right? Or appointed a priest
supposedly,
for the
I guess.
of the third temple?
I have not found it, but in the Discord, I don't remember who posted it. I think it was Xander.
Was it?
He, I think he said that, the Temple Institute appointed a priest, but that would be 0% surprising to me because I knew that they were narrowing down.
Right.
And I think if the last I saw the leader, the guy that was quote unquote leading it, so it's possible that this dude could be one or the other. One of them could be, and again, purely hypothetical. This is for entertainment purposes. Also, on the other end of things, like, as a Christian, don't fret about this. Like, once I get done talking about this, I'm going to think about this like for 10 seconds, probably in a conversation later on down the road, because it's fun conversation, but it's not something I'm genuinely worried about.
It
makes for good conversation.
The concerning part to me is the amount of attention that is being given to that, because historically, traditionally, most cults that are dangerous are not super big. They don't get an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
If he's got that many followers already, especially making claims as bold as the ones that he's making, that's, I mean, like you said, concerning. Like, that's kind of a big deal, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, if we believe that that's all real, then we probably shouldn't be concerned anyway, because
exactly, because
we're covered anyway.
Well, and
we know what we need to focus on.
Right, and God and Jesus didn't command us to go and make disciples, love your neighbor, love God, and make sure and figure out who the Antichrist is so you can point. No, he said, and when we read through Scripture, it says these are the signs, these are the warning signs. You should be alert. You should see this coming. Yeah. And so for Christians, I think it's important that we do study end time theology. I think it is important. And I've had the conversation with people like, well, but, pre-trib rapture. Okay, do you 100%, you guarantee you're 100% correct on that?
Yeah.
Because even if that's my belief, I don't guarantee, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not even claiming that is, I'm just throwing it all out there. I don't think any of us on earth have a perfect 100% theology.
Well, even if you could guarantee it, like, you don't know what leads up to that. Just because that's the designated time period of tribulation doesn't mean that there ain't going to be some wild crap leading up to it.
Well, there's going to be signs, and there's some people, and again, there's biblical scholars who are so better informed and have studied Scripture at a level that I have not, that argue with each other about these points.
Yeah.
And so both of them have studied more than me, and they can't agree. So no matter which side I agree with, have you ever, so pastor, the little window into the pastor world, okay? Mm-hmm. So at our last Multiply Council, it's basically for the denomination that I'm in the Assemblies of God. Mm-hmm. All the pastors get together, and then we vote on our leaders. Mm-hmm. We all agree theologically. Mm-hmm. We are all very much on the same page. And there's small disagreements, but because we're all in a denomination that is very, very specific on a lot of this stuff, we agree pretty across the board on all the majors at the very least. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many times I've seen a statewide unanimous vote for something?
Zero?
I don't think a single time. I don't think so. I don't think I've seen it a single time. Now, there might be an overwhelming majority, like we reelected our superintendent, and the numbers were like 90% voted to reelect him. Mm-hmm. But it's not perfect. And so if we're even disagreeing on like things, and we all are in the same agreement, and we're not all on the same page with stuff like that, like how much more so are we going to be disagreeing on some of these minor theological issues? Mm-hmm. Just for example, I know it took me 15 minutes to explain a 15-second thing, but so I think it's important for Christians to at least look into it enough to like be able to go, hey, even if your belief is there's going to be a pre-tribulation rapture, I should at least get a little familiar with it. Maybe spend a week and actually study it enough that you can feel confident in being able to be like, oh yeah, these are what's going to happen, And even from that, you're going to be wrong, but because in the Discord, how many arguments have we had about rapture and when it's going to happen? We're all very similar people, and we still, the people who I claim myself, I'm one of the people who is arguing with other people as well.
You're not an argumentative person, though.
How many times am I punched?
I'm going to get punched.
You want to make it one? No,
I can feel it.
That was a fake tension. 100%. I am an argumentative person, and I know. I will 100% leave that.
I know.
But I'm arguing with somebody who's in my own denomination, and it's like, again, we agree on all of the majors, and we still disagree on some of these things. So look it up. But all of that giant tangent to basically just say, like, there's a small possibility that the Antichrist and the false prophet could both be on earth.
Yeah.
These two people could be them. One of them could be the false prophet. The other one could be the Antichrist. It's possible. And now, is it probable? I don't know. I used to believe that we were at least 100 years out. But nowadays, with how many end time prophecies have been fulfilled in like rapid succession. I'm at the stage now where I genuinely believe that it could happen any day.
Yeah.
And that was a major shift for me mentally, because I used to always have the mindset that like, I mean, I have, because I've studied Revelations and just end time theology way more than is probably healthy for a Christian to study, just because I really found it interesting when I first got saved. And even with as much as I studied it, you know, I still didn't recognize that sometimes spiritual things occur at a speed that we can't fathom. And in my limited human mind, I'm seeing all these prophecies and I'm like, there's no way. It would take a decade for these to even start to look like they're being fulfilled. And it was a boom. All of a sudden, within a 2-year period, I'm all of a sudden looking at this stuff and going, it could literally be any day now. It could literally start tomorrow. And I would not be, and practically speaking, it could.
Yeah.
Realistically, probably not. Could it though? Yeah, it literally could, based off of scripture, based off of the end time theologies.
It literally 50. Either it will happen or it won't.
Yep.
That's how that works, right?
Totally. But this dude's name, or this dude's video went super viral. We had that one that went viral and it got like over 2 million views in like a week. His had over 4 million in like a day. It went like super duper viral. Now, to me, I don't see how that goes viral without a little bit of help. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, our video got help. And I mean, I've posted videos that are very similar to it, and even ones that like I thought would do better based off of how viral that one went.
Right.
And they've got like nothing.
Yeah.
And his video, just him basically saying that in a day and a half, got double the amount our views got. And even just thinking about like our video, like people were coming back to it over and over again to comment and reply and like stuff. And like, you know what I'm saying? And so there's a little help there. Why? It seems like maybe there's a little bit spiritually going on with this dude. But again, I'm not afraid of it. I'm not even trying to say that we need to be afraid or anything like that. It's just more of a, this dude's weird. You should look it up briefly just to get yourself familiar with who this dude is, but don't do it in like a serious fear-based way, but more
go
like
to his YouTube and tell him that he's sex and he's not. Yeah, I'm kidding. Don't do that. Or do. I don't care. I'm not your dad.
Imagine if this dude is like the Antichrist and like he just personally hunts down every person. And so like the all of the
come
like,
get me, boy. I'll give you that mortal wound.
they're like for real though. Like all of the like mass casualties are him hunting down people who've commented on his YouTube videos and his TikToks and finding them personally.
Come get some. Give you the 9mm mortal wound.
You. Oh my gosh. But yeah, he even according to ChatGPT, I asked. So ChatGPT was weird about him. So my first question was, I basically was like, "Hey, can you tell me about the guy who's claiming that he's the true pope?" There's nobody claiming that. Could you tell me about the guy claiming that should be the next pope, the true pope? Like what? Just kind of adding words to it. As of right now, there's nobody who exists at that. And then I finally found, just through sheer looking through some of the podcasts that I know that briefly talked about him, I was like, okay, I know the name like Al-Shadiq comes in place. I know that for a fact. So then I just said, ChatGPT, tell me more about the guy who claimed that he's the true pope. His name is Al-Shadiq. Oh, Abdullah Hashim Abbas al-Sadiq is an Egyptian American religious leader. It gives me just like content. So then I'm like, expand on that. Gives me some more. Expand. And I'm having to like pry this out of ChatGPT. And it finally goes through and it's like, okay, here is, his claim to the Pope. Here's his claim to this. Here's the things that he said. His videos have gone viral. He has a big following. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. This, you know what I mean? It's like, it took me a minute to even convince ChatGPT to even just talk about this dude. Why? ChatGPT it'll talk about like, I asked ChatGPT to like theoretically name me something random. Like it'll do whatever you tell it to do. And it's sitting here like gatekeeping this information that is literally going viral at the moment. That's weird to me. But
yeah.
And, and it's final thoughts. So this is ChatGPT's final thoughts. So I'll leave you with this because ChatGPT, the ChatGPT overlords, I'll give them credit. But its final thoughts are, Abba al-Shadiq's Pope claim may not be accepted by the Roman Catholic Church, but symbolically, it represents something larger, a growing number of global religious movements seeking to claim authority across traditional boundaries, especially during perceived spiritual or institutional crises. Would you like to hear how this ties into biblical prophecy or potential conspiracy interpretations? I think that's interesting that it's saying that he's, especially during perceived spiritual or institutional crises. Perceived. That's an interesting word for ChatGPT to throw in there. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's all perception. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so all that to say, this dude's Sketchville.
Yeah.
And again, he looks like he's the representative for the goth Black Rifle Coffee Club division, trying to reach the... Anyway, love you guys. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all those things. Join the Discord. We welcome you guys. We've picked up a ton of followers from TikTok. If you joined us from TikTok and you listened to this whole episode, drop a comment. I want to introduce myself to you. I would love to get to know you, meet you, whatever.
Buy an energy drink.
And if you go back and listen to old episodes, if you live in the vicinity and the first time we meet up, I'll buy you an energy drink. Outside of that,
GG's, love ya. Stay BA.
Yeah, be your BA best. I don't know, but anyway, right, dude. Like times are weird right now, right?
Yeah,
and not even like in a sense of like fear based, but like, dude, times are weird. People are flipping out about things they shouldn't be flipping out about, and people are ignoring things they shouldn't ignore. Mm-hmm. It's weird. Mm-hmm. And misinformation and like distraction is so crazy right now. It's nuts. I was talking to somebody and he was like, so the MK Ultra, is that just like one of the things Trump released? And I was like, bro, MK Ultra, we've known all of this stuff about MK Ultra
for decades,
since the 70s, dude. Well, why isn't it's like common knowledge?
Exactly.
You need to contemplate. I literally was like, you need to contemplate that question a little harder.
Yeah.
So anyway, love you guys.
The cake is a lie.
Okay, bye.
In the ancient days of giants, when the earth was wild and free, a creature roamed the valleys, cloaked in mystery. Is he born of angels' blood and man, a Nephilim so tall, or a shadow of the fallen, yet heeding the Maker's call? He's a biblically accurate Bigfoot, with a lineage from the skies. Not a myth or legend, but a truth that never dies. Is he a remnant of the Nephilim, a titan standing tall? Or does he have the word of God upon him, the last to hear the call?